The armored knight stood at the front of the human line, armor scarred but his stance firm. He shouted that he would fight the monster before him until his last breath, making it clear he had no intention of backing down. Across from him, Lin Tion stood calmly, watching the knight and the surrounding human soldiers as if he were observing something already decided. The knight raised his voice again, declaring that this would be the end of it all. Lin Tion didn't respond with words. A crackling red aura spread around him as he lifted his spear, power gathering at its tip. One beam struck directly against the knight's armor, driving the force through him. The impact dropped the knight to his knees. Blood slipped from the corner of his mouth, and his head lowered as defeat pressed in. In his thoughts, he apologized to his king, regretting that he could no longer stand by his side. Just before his life faded completely, the knight released his final spell, Immortal Will. A blinding surge of power burst from his broken body, turning him into a radiant core in the middle of the dark battlefield. The force spilling out shattered the ground around him, cracking and collapsing everything nearby. Seeing this, Lin Tion immediately ordered the goblins to pull back. At this stage, the knight was no longer truly alive, only a body moving on borrowed power. There was no reason to waste time or lose more troop. Once the skill ended, the knight would fall on his own. The four-armed goblin praised Lin Tion without hesitation, saying his judgment was sharp and efficient. With just a bit of planning, the strongest human knight had already been dealt with. Even so, the knight kept fighting. In moments, every goblin still close to him was cut down. Watching this loyal knight spend his last moments as a weapon shattered King Charles II. His will collapsed entirely. The sword slipped from his hands and sank into the ground, left standing upright on a battlefield filled with bodies and smoke. He screamed, asking why everything had turned out like this. Faced with the cruelty of war, he could do nothing. He had never imagined that goblins he once dismissed could wield such overwhelming power. Nearby, the battle between Alice and the Grand Archbishop raged on. Alice surged forward like a violent wave of dark purple energy, cutting through the night. Her sword carried the deadly gale slash, tearing forward with lethal force. The Grand Archbishop met it calmly, wings carrying him as he dissolved the attack. His advantage was no longer absolute, but Alice still couldn't end him quickly. She rushed back into close combat. Slash after slash followed, sword light ripping through the air. Wherever her blade passed, church soldiers fell. Armor split apart, and the ground was soaked red. The gentle holy maiden was gone. What remained was destruction given form. The Grand Archbishop showed no concern for the knights pulled into their clash. Instead, he felt regret. In his thoughts, he admitted it was a shame. If Alice had remained the church's holy maiden, her future might have surpassed even the Pope. Alice shouted back, telling him to stop talking and die. Dark purple light surged as anger consumed everything else. Suddenly, a massive greatsword came down from the side. The ambush caught her off guard and made it clear that the church's leaders were not careless opponents. Drawing on experience and her new strength, Alice jumped back in time. The strike split the ground apart, leaving a deep chasm behind. From the smoke, a silver-armored knight stepped forward. The church's reinforcements had arrived to bring the battle to a close. He reported respectfully that they had come under the Holy Mother's orders. The Grand Archbishop acknowledged them and warned that a demonic dragon's soul was sealed inside Alice's sword. The knights responded together that they understood. A beam of pure holy light then descended from the sky. In an instant, the knights and the Grand Archbishop vanished. The space around Alice shifted, and moments later they reappeared all around her, charging at once and striking without mercy. Alice hurried to block the attacks, then pushed off the ground and retreated, barely avoiding being surrounded again. Using that opening, the Grand Archbishop began chanting high-level magic. A massive surge of holy power descended like a divine pillar, meant to erase anything judged impure. Alice found herself trapped inside a tightening formation, a brilliant magic array above her sealing off every escape. She realized how bad the situation had become. The holy light was already wearing down her resolve. Before she could think further, the knights attacked again. Great swords blazing with divine power crashed down in an endless wave. Alice could only defend as violent clashes echoed again and again. The fight grew increasingly brutal. Each collision shook the battlefield. Alice held on through sheer determination, but the knights' coordination slowly pushed her back. One of them broke through and forced her into a dangerous retreat. She reached the very edge of the barrier. The golden light erased anything it touched, and part of her hair vanished the instant it brushed against it. She told herself she couldn't step back any further. One more step, and she would be erased completely. Pain and exhaustion blurred her vision, but she endured. At that moment, the Grand Archbishop descended from above, his intent hidden beneath holy power. Alice sensed it, but there was no time left. Blades cut into her, and the pain made her feel that the world had no place for someone labeled a mistake. King Charles II shouted for the Grand Archbishop to stop, begging him not to harm Alice. He insisted that she wasn't evil and could still be saved, trying to use his authority to halt the execution. The Grand Archbishop replied coldly that it was already too late. She had no path back. Alice dropped to her knees, overwhelmed by pain. The Grand Archbishop raised his holy sword, deciding that today he would end this mistake. He brought the blade down without hesitation, believing that anyone who refused to submit to the churches had no right to exist. The Cardinal Archbishop slowly reached his hand toward Alice and quietly told her goodbye. Right behind him, King Charles II shouted for her to stop, his voice breaking as he yelled no. A glowing sword shot straight toward Alice's back, its blade shining as it rushed at her. But before it could reach her, dark energy suddenly burst out from her body, spreading around her in thick waves, and a smooth, almost playful voice spoke to her, calling her a sweet girl. From the shadows, the form of a woman appeared, a demon with a calm smile. She told Alice that she looked worn out and suggested she rest, saying she could handle everything from here. Alice looked up at her and firmly told her to be quiet. She said she wouldn't fall for her tricks. The demon faced her directly and explained that Alice had it wrong. She claimed she only wanted to share her power. She added that if Alice died, the church would capture her, and she would never be able to taste blood again. The demon's smile widened as she casually pointed out something else. She asked Alice if she really wanted to die at their hands. Alice lowered her gaze, her body trembling slightly. After a brief pause, she looked ahead again, her expression steady, and admitted that the demon was right. A blinding light burst outward. The demon's voice echoed again, saying good, and that now she would. Before she could finish, crimson energy exploded from Alice in a violent surge. The ground rumbled as a deep boom rolled through the air. Knights nearby were thrown backward by the sheer force of the pressure. Staring at the overwhelming energy, the Archbishop muttered that this aura felt wrong. His eyes widened as he demanded to know what it was. Around Alice, a massive spiral of blood-red power twisted upward into the sky, swirling wildly as eerie laughter echoed from within it. A twisted smile spread across dark Alice's face. Someone nearby stared at her in horror and shouted that this was Darkborn. An Imperial soldier immediately started yelling orders, telling the troops to protect His Majesty and not let him get anywhere near her. Another soldier responded that they understood. King Charles II watched the chaos unfold, quietly calling Alice's name, worry written all over his face. The Cardinal Archbishop raised his voice and ordered everyone to kill her immediately. He insisted she couldn't be allowed to leave the divine sanctuary field. Dark Alice threw her head back and laughed, saying that finally she could truly enjoy herself. Red energy swept across the battlefield, crashing into soldiers and sending them down as their screams filled the air. The Archbishop coughed, blood staining his lips, and muttered that the situation had turned dangerous. He lifted his hand, gathering brilliant light into his palm, and began casting a super-tier spell. A massive beam shot forward and struck Dark Alice directly as the system announced, "Sacred Judgment." An Imperial soldier rushed to him and reported that their own men might get caught in the attack. The Archbishop answered sharply that there was no time to think about that. He told them to hold the line and stressed that she must not complete her transformation into Darkborn. If Darkborn fully emerged, he warned, the entire world would fall. Dark Alice's laughter echoed again as she declared that she would be reborn in this grand war. Inside the storm of power, a golden version of Alice stood face to face with the demon. She firmly told the demon that it was enough. If this continued, she said, she would kill her first and told her not to push her. The demon calmly replied that they needed just a little more. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to defeat their enemies. She added that it was almost done. Golden Alice raised her voice again, repeating that she had told her to stop. Light and darkness collided violently, crashing into each other as the battlefield shook under the force of their clash. The demon replied calmly, saying they should focus on finishing the problem in front of them first. Back on the battlefield, Dark Alice lifted her demonic sword high into the air. A system voice announced, "Super Sword Technique." A glowing magic circle formed above her, humming as it spun. Then another appeared. And another. Red energy poured across the sky as the system declared, "Sea of Blood Abyss." The Cardinal Archbishop looked up, stunned, and shouted that there were 4 magic circles. He said it was impossible. Imperial soldiers charged forward, yelling that they had to take her down as fast as they could. Dark Alice swung her blade in a single, smooth motion. A sharp slicing sound cut through the noise. The Archbishop quickly shouted for everyone not to rush in recklessly. He warned that if she grabbed them now, they would die instantly. He ordered them to attack from a distance and weaken her with magic. The Holy Knights raised their weapons and spells. The system announced, "Lance of Radiance." One soldier shouted as beams of holy light fired toward her. Dark Alice moved straight through the attacks, slipping between the streaks of light with incredible speed. A heartbeat later, a massive explosion tore through the infantry line. The Archbishop watched the destruction unfold, his expression grim. He admitted that she was truly a terrifying demon and said it looked like they would have to summon the Pope. No matter what happened, he insisted, Darkborn had to be destroyed.